Imagine going on a simple family hike and stumbling upon something that shouldn't exist, something that, according to experts, could not possibly be there. That's exactly what happened to the Parker family on what was supposed to be an ordinary weekend, but turned into the start of a geological mystery that would leave scientists stunned. It was a bright Saturday afternoon in rural Colorado. The Parkers, John, his wife Emily, and their teenage son Ryan had planned a hike through a lesser-known trail in the San Juan Mountains. It wasn't their first time. Colorado had always offered breathtaking views, crystal-clear streams, and that peaceful solitude only nature provides. But on that afternoon, something made them stop. In the middle of a small rock slide, Ryan noticed a strange glint among the scattered grey stones. It wasn't too large, about 8 inches across, but its color caught his eye, a deep, almost hypnotic blue, mixed with metallic reflections. It didn't look like any ordinary rock. John bent down, picked it up, and immediately noticed how unnaturally heavy it was for its size. The density was far beyond what he expected. "Must be some kind of rare mineral," he muttered. Emily suggested they bring it home and maybe show it to someone who knew more. Unknowingly, they had just carried home a puzzle that would baffle geologists. Over the next few days, curiosity turned into quiet obsession. John searched online for anything that resembled their find, but nothing quite matched. The color, the shine, the sheer weight, it didn't fit with amethysts, quartz, or any other stone typical of that region. So they decided to take the stone to the University of Colorado's geology department. That's when everything started to spiral into the unexpected. When Professor Alan Whitaker, one of the country's top experts in applied mineralogy, first held the stone, he paused. For several seconds, he simply rotated it under the light, examining every angle. Finally, with a voice heavy with intrigue, he said, "This doesn't make sense." What seemed like a simple hiking curiosity was quickly turning into a scientific enigma, and what would follow next was even more shocking. Professor Whitaker wasted no time. The stone was immediately taken into the university's advanced lab facilities for preliminary analysis. The first step was simple: identify its composition. But even this first test yielded something no one expected. The spectrometer readings didn't match anything in the university's vast database of known minerals. The machine displayed a bizarre combination of elements, traces of osmium, iridium, and a few unknown signatures that the system simply labeled as anomalous. These were not elements typically found together, especially not in this region. More tests followed. They examined its crystal structure under electron microscopes, performed density calculations, and even tested its magnetic properties. Every test seemed to lead them further into the unknown. The stone was almost twice as dense as lead, yet it showed no signs of being metallic in nature. It was non-radioactive, non-magnetic, and perhaps most puzzling, virtually indestructible under lab conditions. Professor Whitaker convened a panel of other geologists, chemists, and even a physicist. None could offer a conclusive explanation. They were dealing with something that defied standard geological classifications. By now, rumors were starting to spread quietly through the academic community. Was this a new form of naturally occurring material, or something entirely different? When Emily and John returned to the lab for an update, Professor Whitaker was frank. "We've never seen anything like this before. It shouldn't exist here or anywhere else on Earth, as far as we know." The word alien started circulating in hushed conversations. But Whitaker, being a man of science, wasn't ready to jump to sensational conclusions. Instead, he proposed something more plausible, yet still extraordinary. Could this be a fragment from a meteorite that had impacted Earth long ago? The hypothesis made sense partially. Meteorites often contain rare metals and unknown compounds, but even among those, this stone was exceptional. If it was from space, it was unlike any meteorite previously catalogued. By this point, the university had alerted federal authorities. Anytime something potentially extraterrestrial is discovered, government agencies take interest. Within days, 2 men from an unnamed federal division arrived on campus. They didn't identify themselves beyond flashing vague credentials and asking for full access to the research. Suddenly, the Parker family's strange discovery was no longer just a curious rock. It was becoming a matter of national interest, perhaps even national security. And the most shocking revelations were still to come. Within 48 hours of the federal agent's arrival, the stone was quietly moved from the university's lab to an undisclosed government facility. The Parker family was informed that, due to national security protocols, they would no longer have access to the object they had discovered. John Parker, frustrated but powerless, pushed for answers. Is this even legal? That's our property. The agents offered little more than bureaucratic reassurances. You've done your country a great service. We'll take it from here. The family's peaceful hiking trip had now spiraled into a surreal government operation. And while the Parkers were technically free, they noticed unmarked cars, occasionally parked near their home. Phone calls sometimes clicked mid-conversation. They were being watched. Meanwhile, inside the secured lab, the investigation continued behind locked doors. Advanced spectroscopy and atomic analysis were performed, using technology far beyond what the university lab had access to. And finally, the scientists uncovered something that turned the mystery into something far more unsettling. The stone contained isotopic ratios that were, quite literally, not of this planet. Ratios that didn't match anything found in Earth's crust, or even in the known catalogue of meteoritic samples. Some elements within the stone carried an atomic structure that appeared artificially manipulated, as though engineered. At this point, even the most skeptical scientists began whispering the same word, artifact. If this object was engineered, then by whom? And how did it end up in the middle of the Colorado mountains? The government quietly reached out to classified divisions within the Department of Defense and even NASA. Rumors circulated that the material might be part of long-theorized parts out-of-place artifacts, objects that suggest the presence of advanced technologies far older or far more advanced than anything known. At home, the Parkers were growing anxious. They had been instructed not to speak to the media or anyone else, but curiosity gnawed at them. Ryan, young and reckless, began researching online forums, trying to find any clue that could explain what they had found. What he stumbled upon next only added to their growing fear. Several online communities had been tracking reports of unusual mineral discoveries across the globe in Siberia, Antarctica, and deep-sea trenches, all featuring similarly inexplicable compositions. Was this stone part of a larger global mystery? And just as the Parkers were beginning to grasp the possible scope of what they had uncovered, a dark knock on their door in the middle of the night signaled that this was far from over. The knock came at 2:13 a.m. Sharp, rhythmic, almost calculated. John opened the door to find two men dressed in black suits, far more intimidating than the previous agents. Their expressions were cold, emotionless, their badges unmarked. One of them spoke in a flat, almost rehearsed tone. "We need to talk now." They didn't enter with permission, they simply walked in. Emily instinctively pulled Ryan closer as the men positioned themselves inside the living room. The taller agent placed a black briefcase on the coffee table and opened it, revealing a stack of documents stamped with bold red letters, classified. "For your safety and the safety of others, you will sign these non-disclosure agreements," the agent stated. "From this moment forward, you are forbidden to speak publicly or privately about the object you discovered." John's voice trembled as he tried to protest. "But it's ours. We found it." The agent's reply was calm but chilling. "Not anymore." The agents offered no further details, but their presence alone was enough to silence any arguments. The Parkers signed the papers, feeling as though their lives had just slipped completely out of their own hands. Over the following weeks, their lives shifted into a strange, paranoid routine. They noticed drones occasionally flying overhead. Strangers sat in parked cars down their street for hours. Even their internet connection began showing strange outages. The message was clear. They were being monitored at all times. Meanwhile, rumors continued to swirl in the shadows of the scientific community. Anonymous sources leaked snippets of information that the government had confirmed the object's artificial origin, that private contractors specializing in reverse engineering, foreign technology had been brought in, that this was not an isolated incident. The whispers spoke of a quiet race within classified circles, not just to study the stone, but to unlock its secrets before rival nations could catch wind of it. For the Parkers, the most unnerving development came when Ryan discovered that several other individuals who had stumbled upon similar artifacts over the years had simply vanished, their names scrubbed from public records, their families silenced. Now, for the first time, the Parkers questioned whether they were truly free or whether they, too, were living on borrowed time. Then one night, Ryan received a cryptic message from an unknown sender. 5 simple words appeared on his laptop screen. "You're not supposed to know." Ryan stared at the message on his screen, his pulse pounding. "You're not supposed to know." It vanished seconds later, as if it had never existed. But for Ryan, it was a spark that ignited an obsession. He dove deeper into the dark web, into forums, encrypted chat rooms, and obscure archives that most people didn't even know existed. Slowly, a disturbing pattern began to emerge, stories eerily similar to theirs scattered across the globe. In 1972, a group of miners in the Ural Mountains of Russia discovered a stone remarkably similar in color, weight, and composition. Soviet scientists classified the discovery, and the miners were never heard from again. In 1989, deep-sea divers off the coast of Japan found a chunk of an unknown metallic blue crystal embedded in the ocean floor. The Japanese government quickly quarantined the area, citing environmental hazards, and most recently, a Norwegian research team found a fragment inside an Arctic glacier, only for the entire expedition to go silent. The more Ryan read, the clearer the picture became. These weren't isolated accidents. They were pieces of a much larger puzzle. Somehow these stones had been appearing across different continents and eras, always discovered by accident, and always swiftly covered up by authorities. John and Emily, now fully aware of the magnitude of what they'd stumbled into, debated whether to report Ryan's findings or bury them. But burying them felt pointless. Someone already knew they were digging. The Watchers, whoever they were, seemed one step ahead at every turn. The family's fear deepened when John received an anonymous envelope in their mailbox. Inside was a single photograph, an aerial image of their house, timestamped just 2 hours earlier. No note, no explanation, just a silent warning. "We see you." Ryan's research eventually led him to a man named Dr. Elias Marlowe, a disgraced former astrophysicist who had gone underground after leaking classified documents years earlier. According to internet whispers, Marlowe had been part of a government project that studied non-terrestrial materials. Desperate, John reached out to Marlowe using encrypted channels. Against all odds, Marlowe agreed to meet, but only under extreme secrecy. "What you've found," Marlowe warned during their first call, "it's part of something far older than any government. You've stumbled into a secret that's been hidden for millennia." What Marlowe would reveal next would shake the Parkers to their core and pull them into a shadowy history far darker than they ever imagined. The meeting took place in a remote cabin deep in the Colorado wilderness, neutral ground, far from prying eyes. Marlowe, a gaunt man with sunken eyes and a permanent nervous edge, wasted no time with small talk. "You need to understand," he began. "What you found isn't new. It's ancient, far older than humanity as we know it." He pulled out a worn leather folder, filled with yellowed documents, photographs and crude sketches. On the table, Marlowe laid out copies of forbidden research images of stones, just like the Parkers' discovery, but unearthed from archaeological sites thousands of years old: Mesopotamia, pre-dynastic Egypt, South America, even beneath collapsed Mayan temples. Every time one of these objects is found, governments move in. They cover it up, erase the discovery, silence witnesses. This has been happening for centuries. Emily asked the question they were all thinking. "But why? What are they hiding?" Marlowe's voice lowered. "Because these stones aren't natural. They're remnants of something or someone that came before us. The working theory is that an advanced civilization, not from this planet, visited Earth long before recorded history. These stones are traces of their technology, or perhaps warnings." He went on to describe suppressed reports of energy emissions, impossible molecular structures, and bizarre electromagnetic signatures associated with these these stones. Some documents even hinted that, when activated, the stones might serve as data storage devices or energy sources. Technology far beyond anything humans have developed. You have to understand, Marlowe continued, this isn't about science anymore, it's about power. Whoever controls these artifacts controls something bigger than any government, bigger than any war. The Parkers sat in stunned silence. The innocent family hike that had started this entire chain of events now felt like a distant memory. They were entangled in a global cover-up involving ancient extraterrestrial artifacts and secret cabals operating far beyond public knowledge. But then Marlowe delivered one final, chilling warning. The people watching you, they're not just protecting national interests. Some of them believe these stones can awaken something we aren't meant to awaken. John whispered, almost to himself. So what do we do now? Marlowe's eyes narrowed. You survive. And you stay very, very quiet. But silence would prove harder than any of them imagined, because forces were already moving against them. The days following their meeting with Marlowe were suffocating. Every movement the Parkers made felt monitored. The black SUVs parked near their home grew bolder, sometimes idling for hours. The family's phones occasionally rang, once no caller ID, no voicemail, unsettling reminders that someone was watching. Always, Ryan, restless and angry, refused to simply hide. We can't just sit here and let them control us. But John, weighed down by fear, cautioned restraint. They've already shown us what they're capable of. Ryan, we can't win this fight. But fate had other plans. Late one evening, as the Parkers returned home from a short drive meant to clear their heads, they found their front door ajar. Inside, drawers were pulled open, papers scattered. Oddly, nothing appeared stolen, not valuables, not electronics. Only one thing was missing: the backup USB drive containing Ryan's research on the other artifact sightings. This was no ordinary burglary. It was a message. We control what you know. Shortly after, Emily received a private message from an untraceable source. The sender offered them a way out, complete relocation under a false identity, government protection, and financial compensation. The only condition: they must permanently cut ties with anyone who knew about the discovery, including Marlowe. It was clear: either disappear or face unknown consequences. That same night, Marlowe reached out in panic. They found me. They know I spoke to you. His voice trembled with urgency. You must leave tonight. Once you enter their system, you'll vanish like the others. The weight of the decision crushed them. Could they live their lives as fugitives? Would silence ever truly protect them? The illusion of choice was crumbling before their eyes. But before they could act, events spiraled even further. At 3:27 a.m., agents stormed Marlowe's remote cabin. Surveillance footage leaked later showed men in tactical gear, moving with military precision. Marlowe was never seen again. His name was quietly erased from public records within days. The Parkers realized their clock had run out. In one final act of desperation, John uploaded a heavily encrypted file to multiple anonymous servers, a digital time bomb containing every piece of evidence they had gathered. If anything happened to them, the file would release publicly, and with that, the family vanished, slipping into a shadowy witness protection system that very few people ever leave. Years have passed since the Parkers disappeared. Their home stands empty, slowly overtaken by nature, a silent monument to the mystery that consumed their lives. Officially, no record of their discovery exists. No interviews, no news reports, no investigation, as if they had simply never existed. But whispers remain. Every so often, obscure forums flare up with rumors of people who found impossible stones, strange artifacts quickly confiscated. Their finders never heard from again. Governments deny, officials deflect, and the mainstream moves on. But for a small circle of truth seekers, the pattern is undeniable. The encrypted file John released never fully surfaced. Hackers claim fragments exist on deep web servers, but no one has successfully decrypted the full contents. It's as if the truth is forever, just out of reach, glimpsed but never grasped. Some theorize the stones are fragments of an ancient alien survey mission. Others believe they're remnants of a forgotten terrestrial civilization, humanity's own ancestors, wiped out by forces unknown. A few even whisper darker theories, that the stones are keys to a technology so powerful, entire governments would collapse if its existence were known. But one thing remains certain: these stones exist, and those who control them operate in the shadows, far beyond the reach of ordinary people. For the rest of us, the Parker family's story serves as both a cautionary tale and a haunting reminder. Sometimes the most dangerous discoveries aren't the ones we seek, but the ones we stumble upon by accident. And somewhere, perhaps deep in a hidden facility, that strange, impossibly heavy blue stone still sits, waiting